Sarah Martinez wiped the sweat from her forehead as she adjusted her grip on the standard-issue rifle for the 10th time that morning. The California sun beat down mercilessly on the Coronado training facility, and the weight of expectation felt heavier than any piece of equipment she had carried during her 6 weeks of basic training. Around her, the other trainees moved with varying degrees of confidence, but Sarah could feel the skeptical glances burning into her back like laser sights. She had known this day would come eventually. The day when her marksmanship scores would either prove she belonged here or confirm what the whispers in the barracks suggested every night after lights out. The other recruits tried to be subtle about their doubts, but military facilities were echo chambers where rumors traveled faster than bullets. They questioned whether a 23-year-old woman from East Los Angeles, who had never held a rifle before enlisting, could possibly measure up to the standards expected of elite military personnel. Master Sergeant Davidson stood at the firing line with his clipboard, his weathered face showing no emotion as he called out instructions to the group of 30 trainees. His voice carried the authority of someone who had seen combat in 3 different theaters and had zero tolerance for weakness or excuses. Sarah respected him, but she also knew that respect had to be earned both ways, and, so far, her performance had been adequate at best. The morning had started like any other training day. Reveille at 0500, followed by physical training, breakfast, and equipment inspection. But today carried extra weight because it was qualification day for advanced marksmanship training. Only the top performers would move forward to specialized programs, while the rest would be assigned to standard military occupational specialties. For Sarah, this represented everything she had worked toward since making the decision to leave her job at a community center in Los Angeles and pursue something that would challenge every assumption she had ever made about herself. Her journey to this moment had begun 18 months earlier when her younger brother Miguel returned from his deployment in Afghanistan. She had watched him transform from a directionless teenager into a confident young man with purpose and discipline. The change was so dramatic that it forced her to examine her own life and question whether she was living up to her potential. Miguel never pressured her to enlist, but his stories about the camaraderie, the mission, and the sense of being part of something larger than himself planted seeds that eventually grew into an unshakable determination. The decision to enlist had not been popular with her family. Her mother, Isabella, had worked double shifts as a cleaning lady to keep Sarah and Miguel in school, dreaming of the day when her children would have college degrees and stable careers far removed from the struggles of their neighborhood. When Sarah announced her intention to join the military, Isabella cried for 3 days straight, convinced that her daughter was throwing away opportunities that she had never had. But Sarah had never felt more certain about anything in her life. She wanted to prove that she could excel in an environment that demanded excellence, where performance mattered more than background or connections. She wanted to serve her country, but, more than that, she wanted to discover what she was truly capable of when pushed beyond her comfort zone. The rifle felt foreign in her hands despite weeks of training. Unlike some of her fellow trainees who had grown up hunting with their fathers or had participated in competitive shooting sports in high school, Sarah's relationship with firearms was purely academic until she arrived at basic training. Every aspect of marksmanship had to be learned from scratch, from proper breathing techniques to trigger control to reading wind conditions. Her instructor, Sergeant Rodriguez, had been patient but honest about her progress. During their last one-on-one session, he had told her that she had the fundamentals down and possessed the mental discipline necessary for precision shooting, but something was holding her back from achieving the scores she needed to advance. He suggested that it might be psychological rather than technical, pointing out that her practice rounds were consistently good, but her qualification attempts showed too much variation. As she settled into the prone position on the firing line, Sarah tried to block out the ambient noise of the training facility. Other groups were running drills in the distance, helicopters were conducting training flights overhead, and the constant chatter of radio communications created a symphony of military activity. The key, she had learned, was to create a bubble of concentration that nothing could penetrate. The targets stood 200 meters downrange, black silhouettes against the tan backdrop of the California desert. At this distance, precision became paramount. A slight tremor in her hand, an inconsistent breathing pattern, or a momentary lapse in concentration could mean the difference between qualification and remedial training. Sarah had seen talented trainees wash out because they could not perform under pressure, and she was determined not to join their ranks. Master Sergeant Davidson's voice cut through her concentration as he announced the beginning of the qualification course. Each trainee would have 40 rounds to achieve a qualifying score, with specific requirements for different distance and position combinations. The course was designed to test not just accuracy, but adaptability and consistency under stress. Sarah's first series went well. Shooting from the prone position at the 200-meter targets, she managed to place 7 out of 10 rounds in the scoring zones. It was a solid start, but she knew that the standing and kneeling positions would be more challenging. As she transitioned between positions, she noticed movement in her peripheral vision and realized that they were no longer alone on the range. A small group of instructors had gathered near the observation tower, including several she did not recognize. Their presence added another layer of pressure, but Sarah forced herself to maintain focus on the fundamentals that had been drilled into her during weeks of training. Breathing, sight alignment, trigger control, follow-through. The mantra repeated in her mind as she prepared for the next series of shots. The kneeling position had always been her weakest, requiring a balance of stability and flexibility that felt unnatural despite hours of practice. As she settled into position, Sarah became aware of quiet conversations taking place behind the firing line. Instructors were discussing individual trainees, making assessments that would influence future training opportunities. She caught fragments of commentary about various recruits, some positive and others less encouraging. When it came time for the standing position shots, Sarah felt the full weight of scrutiny. This was the most challenging part of the qualification, requiring precise control while supporting the rifle without artificial support. She had practiced this position hundreds of times, but muscle memory could only compensate so much for the adrenaline and pressure of qualification day. Her first 3 shots felt good, the rifle recoiling consistently against her shoulder as she worked to maintain proper sight picture between rounds. But, as she prepared for the 4th shot, she noticed something that made her pause. One of the unknown instructors had moved closer to her position and was watching her technique with intense focus. Unlike the other observers who seemed to be making general assessments, this individual appeared to be analyzing specific technical aspects of her shooting form. The instructor was clearly special operations, evident from his bearing, equipment, and the quiet deference shown by the other personnel around him. Sarah had seen enough movies and heard enough stories to recognize the type, but being observed by someone of that caliber while attempting to qualify added a new dimension of pressure she had not anticipated. She completed the standing position series with mixed results, managing to keep most rounds in the scoring zones but knowing that her performance was inconsistent. As the qualification continued, Sarah found herself increasingly frustrated by her inability to shoot to her potential when it mattered most. During practice sessions, she had demonstrated the ability to achieve the scores she needed, but, under the stress of qualification, something was preventing her from accessing that level of performance. The final phase of qualification required transition shooting, moving between different positions and engaging targets at varying distances. This portion of the test separated trainees who had simply memorized techniques from those who had truly internalized the skills necessary for real-world application. Sarah knew this was her opportunity to distinguish herself, but it was also her biggest challenge. As she prepared for the transition series, the special operations instructor moved even closer, positioning himself where he could observe her technique from multiple angles. Rather than feeling intimidated, Sarah found his presence oddly reassuring. There was something about his quiet confidence and professional demeanor that suggested he saw potential that others might miss. The transition shooting began with rapid movement between firing positions, each requiring quick target acquisition and precise shot placement within strict time limits. Sarah's muscle memory took over as she flowed between prone, kneeling, and standing positions, working to maintain accuracy while managing the physical demands of constant movement. Her performance during this phase was better than expected, with most shots landing in the required zones despite the challenging pace. As she completed the final shots of the qualification course, Sarah felt a mixture of relief and uncertainty. She had performed adequately, but she was not sure whether adequate would be sufficient for advancement to specialized training programs. Master Sergeant Davidson called for weapons to be cleared and secured as the formal qualification period ended. Trainees gathered their equipment and moved to the designated waiting area while instructors tabulated scores and prepared feedback. The atmosphere was tense as everyone awaited results that would determine their immediate military futures. Sarah sat quietly, mentally reviewing her performance and trying to assess whether she had achieved the scores necessary for advancement. Around her, other trainees engaged in nervous conversation, sharing impressions of their own shooting and speculating about qualification standards. She preferred to remain quiet during these moments, using the time to decompress and prepare mentally for whatever feedback awaited. The special operations instructor continued to observe the group, occasionally making notes on a small pad that he kept in his chest pocket. Sarah noticed that his attention seemed to focus on specific individuals, including herself, suggesting that he was evaluating potential candidates for something beyond standard advancement opportunities. When Master Sergeant Davidson returned with the qualification results, the mood became even more serious. Individual feedback sessions would follow, but the overall tone of his announcement suggested that performance had been mixed across the group. Some trainees had clearly excelled, others had struggled, and several fell into the uncertain middle ground where minor differences in scoring could have major implications for future assignments. Sarah's individual feedback session revealed that she had achieved qualifying scores, but barely. Her performance was consistent with her training record, showing competence without excellence. Master Sergeant Davidson acknowledged her improvement over the course of training while noting that her scores suggested assignment to general military roles rather than specialized programs. As she processed this feedback, Sarah felt a complex mixture of emotions. Relief at having qualified, disappointment at not achieving the score she had hoped for, and uncertainty about what opportunities would be available given her performance level. She had met the minimum standards, but, in a competitive environment where excellence was the norm, minimum standards often meant limited options. The debriefing session concluded with instructions about next day activities and upcoming assignment notifications. Trainees were dismissed to evening chow and personal time, carrying with them the knowledge of where they stood in the program hierarchy. For some, this represented validation of months of hard work. For others, including Sarah, it meant accepting that their military careers might follow different paths than originally hoped. As she walked back toward the barracks, Sarah reflected on the day's events and what they meant for her future. She had proven to herself that she could meet military standards, but she had not distinguished herself in ways that would open doors to elite opportunities. The question now was whether she could accept this reality or find ways to continue improving in hopes of future advancement. The evening was typical for a military training facility, with various groups engaged in maintenance activities, physical training, and administrative tasks. Sarah went through her normal routine of equipment cleaning and preparation for the following day, but her mind remained focused on the events at the firing range and what might come next. Little did she know that her performance had caught the attention of someone whose opinion could change everything, and that the real test was yet to come. The next morning arrived with an unexpected change in the training schedule. Instead of the usual progression through standard military occupational specialty preparation, Sarah and 12 other trainees were instructed to report to a different section of the base for what was described only as additional evaluation. The ambiguity of the instructions created a buzz of speculation among the selected group, with theories ranging from remedial training to special assignment consideration. Sarah gathered her equipment with the same careful attention to detail that had become second nature during basic training, but her mind raced with questions about what lay ahead. The trainees selected for this additional evaluation represented a cross-section of performance levels from the previous day's qualification, which made it impossible to determine the criteria for selection. Some had achieved outstanding scores, others had barely qualified, and a few fell somewhere in between. The designated meeting point was a nondescript building on the far side of the installation, away from the main training areas where most activities took place. As the selected trainees assembled, Sarah noticed that the atmosphere felt different from typical training exercises. There was an air of formality and importance that suggested this evaluation carried weight beyond normal progression assessments. When the special operations instructor from the previous day emerged from the building, several pieces of the puzzle began falling into place. His presence explained the careful selection of trainees and the secretive nature of the additional evaluation. Sarah recognized him as the individual who had observed her performance so intently during qualification, and she wondered what specific aspects of her shooting had captured his attention. The instructor introduced himself as Senior Chief Petty Officer Marcus Thompson, a veteran of multiple deployments and currently assigned to advanced training development. His credentials were impressive even by military standards, with combat experience spanning over 15 years and expertise in specialized operations that few military personnel ever encountered. The fact that someone of his caliber was personally involved in this evaluation indicated its significance. Senior Chief Thompson explained that they had been selected based on specific performance indicators that went beyond simple qualification scores. He emphasized that technical proficiency was only one component of the assessment, with equal attention paid to adaptability, problem-solving ability, and performance under stress. The evaluation would consist of multiple phases designed to test different aspects of their capabilities in realistic scenarios. The first phase took place on a modified shooting range that Sarah had never seen before. Unlike the standard qualification course with its predictable target distances and positions, this range featured variable terrain, moving targets, and environmental challenges designed to simulate real-world conditions. The complexity was immediately apparent, requiring trainees to make rapid decisions while maintaining accuracy under constantly changing circumstances. Sarah's first impression was that this evaluation would separate trainees who had simply memorized techniques from those who could apply skills creatively in unpredictable situations. The range featured obstacles that required unconventional shooting positions, targets that appeared at random intervals, and wind conditions that changed throughout the course. Success would depend on adaptability rather than rote execution of learned procedures. As Senior Chief Thompson demonstrated the course requirements, Sarah paid careful attention to his shooting technique and decision-making process. His movements were fluid and efficient, with no wasted motion or hesitation as he engaged targets from challenging positions. More importantly, she observed how he constantly assessed and adapted to changing conditions, treating each engagement as a unique problem requiring a specific solution. When it came time for individual attempts, Sarah approached the course with a different mindset than she had used during standard qualification. Instead of focusing solely on technical fundamentals, she tried to think strategically about each engagement, considering factors like target priority, ammunition conservation, and position advantages. The course demanded a more dynamic approach that integrated marksmanship skills with tactical thinking. Her performance on the modified range surprised both Sarah and the evaluators. While her technical scores were similar to the previous day's qualification, her decision-making and adaptability were significantly better than expected. She demonstrated an intuitive understanding of tactical principles that typically required extensive training to develop, suggesting natural aptitude that could be refined with proper instruction. Senior Chief Thompson made notes throughout her run, paying particular attention to moments when she had to make rapid decisions under pressure. Unlike the previous day's evaluation where she had seemed constrained by overthinking, Sarah found herself trusting instincts and reacting naturally to the dynamic challenges presented by the course. The difference in her confidence and fluidity was noticeable to everyone observing. The second phase of evaluation moved to an indoor facility configured as a shoothouse, designed to simulate close-quarters combat scenarios. This environment was completely foreign to Sarah's experience, requiring skills and techniques that had not been covered during basic training. The confined spaces, multiple angles, and rapidly changing target presentations created challenges that pushed all the trainees well beyond their comfort zones. Senior Chief Thompson provided a brief orientation to shoothouse procedures, emphasizing safety protocols and basic movement techniques. However, it was clear that this phase was designed to evaluate natural instincts and learning ability rather than existing knowledge. The trainees would be thrown into scenarios where they had to figure out solutions in real time, with minimal guidance beyond fundamental safety requirements. Sarah's first shoothouse run was tentative as she worked to understand the environment and requirements. The confined spaces felt claustrophobic compared to the open ranges where she had trained, and the need to move quickly while maintaining muzzle discipline added complexity she had not anticipated. Her performance was cautious but safe, demonstrating good judgment even when uncertain about optimal techniques. Subsequent runs showed rapid improvement as Sarah began to understand the tactical principles underlying shoothouse operations. She developed an appreciation for angles and positioning that allowed effective engagement while minimizing exposure, and her movement became more confident as she learned to trust her training and instincts. The progression was notable enough that Senior Chief Thompson called for additional runs to further assess her learning curve. During breaks between shoothouse scenarios, Sarah observed other trainees and began to notice patterns in their performance. Some excelled in technical execution but struggled with decision-making under pressure. Others showed good tactical instincts but lacked the marksmanship fundamentals necessary for precise shot placement. A few demonstrated well-rounded capabilities that translated effectively across different challenges. The evaluation continued with scenarios that combined marksmanship challenges with physical fitness requirements, testing the ability to maintain accuracy while managing fatigue and stress. These exercises revealed another dimension of military performance where mental toughness became as important as technical skills. Sarah discovered that her background in community center athletics provided advantages she had not previously recognized. Her experience organizing youth sports programs had taught her to maintain focus while managing multiple priorities simultaneously, a skill that proved valuable when engaging targets while navigating physical obstacles. Additionally, her years of working with teenagers from challenging backgrounds had developed her ability to remain calm under pressure and make quick decisions when faced with unexpected situations. As the day progressed, Sarah began to understand that this evaluation was measuring qualities that extended far beyond marksmanship proficiency. The scenarios were designed to reveal character traits like resilience, adaptability, and leadership potential that would be crucial for advanced military roles. Each phase built upon previous challenges while introducing new variables that tested different aspects of performance under stress. Senior Chief Thompson's feedback throughout the evaluation was minimal but meaningful. He offered specific technical corrections when necessary but focused primarily on encouraging trainees to trust their instincts and push beyond perceived limitations. His approach suggested confidence in their ability to figure out solutions independently, which was both challenging and empowering. During a break in the evaluation, Sarah found herself in conversation with Senior Chief Thompson about her background and motivations for military service. She explained her journey from community work in Los Angeles to military training, emphasizing her desire to challenge herself and serve something larger than personal interests. His questions were thoughtful and suggested genuine interest in understanding what drove her commitment to excellence. The conversation revealed that Senior Chief Thompson had grown up in similar circumstances, using military service as an opportunity to develop capabilities and pursue goals that would have been impossible otherwise. His perspective helped Sarah understand that her background was an asset rather than a limitation, providing experiences and insights that could enhance rather than hinder military performance. The final phase of evaluation involved team-based scenarios where individual capabilities had to be integrated with group dynamics and communication skills. Sarah found herself working with trainees she had not interacted with extensively, requiring rapid assessment of strengths and weaknesses to develop effective collaborative approaches. These exercises tested leadership potential and ability to contribute to team success rather than just individual achievement. Her performance in team scenarios was strong, with a natural tendency to support others while maintaining personal standards. Sarah demonstrated ability to communicate effectively under stress, adapt her role based on team needs, and provide leadership when situations required decisive action. These qualities had been developed through her community work but translated surprisingly well to military applications. As the evaluation concluded, Senior Chief Thompson gathered the group for a comprehensive debrief that went beyond simple performance assessment. He emphasized that the day's activities were designed to identify potential for advanced training opportunities that required specific combinations of technical skill, mental toughness, and character traits. The evaluation had been as much about discovering hidden capabilities as measuring existing proficiency. His feedback to Sarah was more detailed than she had expected, acknowledging areas where improvement was needed while highlighting strengths that could be developed with proper training. He specifically mentioned her adaptability and learning curve as indicators of potential for specialized programs that required rapid skill acquisition under demanding conditions. The assessment suggested possibilities she had not considered. The day ended with instructions to continue normal training activities while awaiting notification about future assignments. However, the tone of Senior Chief Thompson's concluding remarks suggested that this evaluation would influence decisions beyond standard military occupational specialty assignments. For Sarah, this represented validation that her performance had been noticed and that opportunities might exist beyond what she had originally envisioned. As she walked back to the barracks, Sarah reflected on the day's challenges and what they had revealed about her capabilities. The evaluation had pushed her well beyond her comfort zone, but she had responded positively to every challenge. More importantly, she had gained confidence in her ability to learn quickly and perform effectively in unfamiliar situations, qualities that would serve her well regardless of future assignments. The evening routine proceeded normally, but Sarah found herself thinking about the conversation with Senior Chief Thompson and what it might mean for her military career. His interest in her background and motivations suggested that advanced opportunities might be available for those willing to commit to the demanding training and lifestyle they required. The question was whether she was prepared for challenges that would make basic training seem easy by comparison. Little did she know that Senior Chief Thompson had already made his decision about her potential, and that the real test would come when he offered her an opportunity that would change everything. 3 days passed before Sarah received notification that would alter the entire trajectory of her military career. The message was simple and direct, instructing her to report to Senior Chief Thompson's office at 0800 hours for individual counseling regarding future training opportunities. The official tone provided no hints about what might be discussed, leaving Sarah to wonder whether this meeting represented advancement or administrative processing. She prepared for the meeting with the same attention to detail that had become her standard approach to all military activities. uniform inspection, equipment check, and mental preparation for whatever conversation awaited. Sarah had learned during basic training that individual counseling sessions could cover anything from performance feedback to disciplinary action, making it important to be ready for any scenario. Senior Chief Thompson's office was located in the same nondescript building where the special evaluation had taken place, but the interior reflected the professionalism and experience of its occupant. Military awards and photographs from various deployments decorated the walls, telling the story of a career dedicated to excellence in demanding circumstances. The space felt serious but not intimidating, suggesting that important conversations took place here regularly. When Sarah entered, Senior Chief Thompson gestured for her to take a seat across from his desk. His demeanor was professional but relaxed, indicating that this would be a substantive discussion rather than a brief administrative meeting. He began by asking about her experience during the special evaluation and her thoughts about the challenges she had encountered during the various phases. Sarah provided an honest assessment of her performance, acknowledging areas where she had struggled while highlighting aspects of the evaluation that had felt natural and engaging. She mentioned her surprise at how well she had adapted to the dynamic shooting scenarios and team-based exercises, suggesting that these challenges had revealed capabilities she had not previously recognized in herself. Senior Chief Thompson listened carefully to her self-assessment before sharing his own observations from the evaluation. He explained that her technical marksmanship scores, while adequate, were not what had captured his attention. Instead, he had been impressed by her decision-making under pressure, her ability to learn rapidly from minimal instruction, and her natural grasp of tactical principles that typically required extensive training to develop. More importantly, he had noticed qualities of character and mental toughness that suggested potential for roles requiring exceptional commitment and resilience. The evaluation had been designed to identify individuals who possess not just technical aptitude, but the psychological profile necessary for specialized military occupations that demanded performance under extreme conditions. He outlined an opportunity that Sarah had not known existed, describing advanced training programs designed to develop elite military personnel for specialized operations. These programs required total commitment, with training that was physically and mentally demanding beyond anything she had experienced during basic military preparation. The failure rate was high, and successful completion required sacrifices that not everyone was willing or able to make. Sarah listened with growing excitement and apprehension as Senior Chief Thompson described what the training would entail. Physical conditioning that would push her body to limits she had never imagined, technical instruction in advanced military skills, and psychological preparation for operations where failure was not an option. The program would last 18 months, with multiple phases designed to progressively develop capabilities while eliminating those who could not meet standards. The opportunity was remarkable, but Senior Chief Thompson was equally honest about the challenges and costs associated with acceptance. The training would separate her from family and friends for extended periods, require her to perform under conditions of extreme stress and discomfort, and demand total dedication to mission success above personal considerations. Not everyone who attempted the program was suited for its demands, regardless of their initial motivation or apparent capabilities. He explained that her selection for this opportunity was based on performance indicators that went beyond the special evaluation. Her entire military record had been reviewed, including input from instructors who had observed her development during basic training. The assessment included not just technical performance, but character traits like persistence, integrity, and ability to maintain standards under pressure. Sarah asked detailed questions about the training program, seeking to understand both the opportunities it would provide and the sacrifices it would require. Senior Chief Thompson's answers were comprehensive and honest, neither overselling the benefits nor understating the challenges. He emphasized that this decision would define the direction of her military career and personal life for years to come. The conversation continued for over an hour, covering every aspect of the program from daily training schedules to long-term career implications. Sarah learned that successful completion would qualify her for assignment to units that operated at the highest levels of military capability, with missions that made meaningful differences in national security and global stability. The work would be demanding but also deeply rewarding for those who possessed the skills and commitment necessary for success. As the formal briefing concluded, Senior Chief Thompson's demeanor shifted slightly, becoming more personal and reflective. He shared his own experience with similar decisions early in his career, describing the uncertainty and excitement of choosing paths that would challenge every assumption about personal limitations. His advice was simple but profound: trust instincts that had already demonstrated reliability, and be willing to discover capabilities that could only be developed through accepting seemingly impossible challenges. He gave Sarah 48 hours to make her decision, emphasizing that acceptance would require immediate commitment without possibility of changing direction once training began. The timeline was designed to prevent overthinking while ensuring that candidates had sufficient opportunity to consider all implications of their choice. This was not a decision to be made lightly or without full understanding of what it would mean for her future. Sarah left the meeting with her mind racing through everything she had learned. The opportunity exceeded anything she had imagined when enlisting, but it also represented a level of commitment and sacrifice that was difficult to fully comprehend. She would need to carefully consider whether she was prepared for challenges that would make basic training seem like preparation rather than accomplishment. The following day, Sarah found herself analyzing the decision from every possible angle. She thought about her motivations for military service, her family's expectations, and her own goals for personal and professional development. The opportunity aligned perfectly with her desire to discover her true capabilities, but it would also require her to leave behind familiar routines and relationships that provided stability and comfort. She called her brother Miguel that evening, seeking perspective from someone who understood both military life and her personal journey. His advice was characteristically direct and supportive, encouraging her to pursue opportunities that would challenge her to grow while reminding her that few people ever received chances to discover what they were truly capable of achieving. Miguel's perspective helped clarify Sarah's thinking about the decision. He reminded her that she had already demonstrated the courage necessary to leave a comfortable life in Los Angeles to pursue military service, suggesting that this next step was a logical extension of choices she had already made. His confidence in her abilities provided reassurance that others could see potential she sometimes doubted in herself. The conversation with her mother was more difficult, as Isabella struggled to understand why her daughter would choose increasingly challenging paths when safer alternatives were available. However, Sarah was able to explain that this opportunity represented everything she had hoped to find in military service, a chance to serve at the highest level while developing capabilities that would benefit her throughout life. After extensive reflection and multiple conversations with people whose opinions she valued, Sarah reached her decision. She would accept Senior Chief Thompson's offer, recognizing that this represented the opportunity she had been seeking since making the original decision to enlist. The training would be demanding, but it would also provide the challenge and purpose that had motivated her military service from the beginning. When she returned to Senior Chief Thompson's office to communicate her decision, Sarah felt a sense of certainty that surprised her with its clarity. The choice aligned with her goals and values while offering possibilities for growth and service that exceeded anything else available. She was prepared for the sacrifices the program would require because she understood what it could provide in return. Senior Chief Thompson received her decision with approval but no surprise, suggesting that her choice had been anticipated based on his assessment of her character and motivations. He explained that her training would begin within 2 weeks, following completion of administrative processing and preparation activities. The timeline was aggressive, designed to maintain momentum while ensuring that all necessary arrangements were completed properly. The remaining days at the current training facility passed quickly as Sarah completed standard military processing while preparing mentally and physically for the challenges ahead. She used the time to enhance her fitness level, review technical materials related to advanced military skills, and strengthen relationships with fellow trainees who would be pursuing different career paths. Her departure from basic training was bittersweet, marking the end of a phase that had introduced her to military life while beginning a journey toward opportunities she was only beginning to understand. The friendships formed during basic training would continue, but her path was diverging toward experiences that few military personnel would ever encounter. As Sarah prepared to leave for advanced training, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. Every decision from enlisting to accepting this specialized opportunity had been driven by a desire to discover her true capabilities while serving something larger than personal interest. The path ahead would be more challenging than anything she had previously attempted, but it would also provide the ultimate test of whether her commitment and capabilities were sufficient for elite military service. The final evening at the basic training facility, Sarah packed her equipment with careful attention to details that had become second nature over months of military life. Each item represented not just necessary gear, but memories of lessons learned and challenges overcome. Tomorrow would begin a new phase where everything would be more demanding, but also more meaningful than anything she had previously experienced. Senior Chief Thompson's final words of advice echoed in her mind as she prepared for sleep. trust the instincts that had brought her this far, maintain the standards that had earned this opportunity, and be prepared to discover capabilities that could only be developed through accepting challenges that seemed impossible at first glance. The journey ahead would test everything she thought she knew about her own limitations. The advanced training facility was unlike anything Sarah had experienced during basic military preparation. Located on a remote section of the base, the complex featured specialized ranges, training buildings, and equipment designed specifically for developing elite military capabilities. The atmosphere was intense from the moment she arrived, with an undercurrent of seriousness that made basic training seem relaxed by comparison. Sarah found herself among 23 other candidates selected for the program, representing diverse backgrounds and military occupational specialties. Some came from infantry units, others from technical fields, and a few like herself had been identified during initial training phases. Despite their different origins, all had demonstrated combinations of technical competence, mental toughness, and character traits necessary for specialized operations. The first week consisted of assessment and orientation activities designed to establish baseline capabilities while introducing candidates to program standards and expectations. Physical fitness requirements exceeded anything Sarah had encountered, with daily sessions that pushed cardiovascular and strength limits while incorporating skills training that demanded coordination and mental focus simultaneously. Her academic preparation had not included extensive physical conditioning beyond basic military requirements, but Sarah's background in community athletics provided advantages she had not anticipated. Years of organizing sports programs for teenagers had kept her in reasonable shape, and her experience motivating young people to exceed their perceived limitations translated surprisingly well to self-motivation during demanding training sessions. The marksmanship portion of initial assessment revealed both strengths and areas requiring significant development. While Sarah's fundamental shooting skills were adequate, the advanced techniques and equipment used in specialized operations required learning entirely new approaches to precision shooting. The stakes were higher, the standards more demanding, and the margin for error much smaller than anything she had previously encountered. Senior Chief Thompson served as one of several instructors responsible for different aspects of the program, bringing combat experience and training expertise that commanded immediate respect from all candidates. His teaching methods emphasized understanding principles rather than memorizing procedures, requiring students to think critically about problems while developing solutions adapted to specific situations. During individual counseling sessions with various instructors, Sarah learned that her selection had been based on potential rather than existing capabilities. The assessment team had identified qualities suggesting she could develop advanced skills with proper training, but success would depend entirely on her willingness to work harder than she had ever worked and accept feedback that challenged every assumption about her abilities. The first major milestone came during the third week with individual shooting assessments that would determine continuation in the program. Unlike basic qualification courses with predictable requirements, these evaluations featured dynamic scenarios requiring rapid decision-making while maintaining precision under stress. The standards were unforgiving, and several candidates were eliminated based on performance that would have been considered excellent in conventional military training. Sarah approached the assessment with nervousness tempered by determination to demonstrate the improvement she had achieved through intensive practice and instruction. Her performance exceeded her own expectations, with scores that placed her in the middle of the candidate group rather than struggling to meet minimum standards. The progress was encouraging but also highlighted how much development was still required. Following successful completion of initial assessments, the program intensity increased dramatically. Training days began before dawn and continued well into the evening, incorporating physical conditioning, technical skills instruction, and academic study that covered everything from ballistics to tactical planning. The pace was relentless, designed to simulate operational demands while building capabilities necessary for mission success. Sarah's daily routine became a carefully managed balance of training activities, study time, and the minimal rest necessary to maintain performance standards. Sleep deprivation was constant, meals were functional rather than enjoyable, and every moment was structured to maximize learning and skill development. The environment was designed to eliminate distractions while focusing entirely on preparation for demands that most people could not imagine. The camaraderie among remaining candidates was intense but supportive, with everyone understanding that their success depended on mutual encouragement and shared commitment to excellence. Competition existed, but it was focused on pushing each other to higher performance rather than undermining others for personal advantage. The bonds formed during this period would last throughout their military careers. Technical instruction covered weapons systems, tactics, and equipment that represented the cutting edge of military capability. Sarah found herself learning to operate devices and employ techniques that seemed like science fiction compared to basic military training. Every system was more complex, every procedure more demanding, and every standard more precise than conventional military applications. Her aptitude for technical learning proved stronger than anticipated, with an ability to master complex procedures through careful study and methodical practice. The analytical skills developed through years of program planning and problem-solving and community work translated effectively to military technical training, providing advantages that offset some of the challenges posed by her limited military background. Physical conditioning reached levels that tested the absolute limits of human endurance while maintaining mental acuity necessary for complex decision-making. Sarah discovered that her body was capable of far more than she had ever imagined, but also learned that physical capability was meaningless without the mental discipline necessary to perform when exhaustion made every movement difficult. The psychological aspects of training were as demanding as physical challenges, designed to develop mental toughness necessary for operations where failure could have catastrophic consequences. Candidates were placed in scenarios where they had to maintain performance standards while managing stress, fatigue, and uncertainty that would break most people's ability to function effectively. Sarah's experience working with young people from challenging backgrounds provided unexpected advantages during psychological training. Her ability to remain calm during crisis situations and maintain focus while managing multiple competing priorities had been developed through years of handling emergencies and conflicts in community settings. These skills translated directly to military applications where composure under pressure was essential. As training progressed through increasingly advanced phases, the candidate group continued to shrink as individuals reached their personal limits or decided that the demands exceeded their willingness to continue. Each departure was handled professionally but served as a reminder that not everyone possessed the combination of capabilities and commitment necessary for program completion. Senior Chief Thompson's role evolved from instructor to mentor as Sarah demonstrated consistent progress and unwavering commitment to meeting program standards. His feedback became more detailed and personally invested, suggesting confidence in her potential while challenging her to reach performance levels she had not previously considered possible. During a particularly demanding phase involving extended field exercises, Sarah faced her most serious challenge since beginning the program. The scenario required sustained performance over 72 hours with minimal rest, constant pressure, and technical demands that pushed every skill to its limits. Several strong candidates failed to complete this phase successfully, raising questions about her own ability to meet its requirements. The exercise began with equipment preparation and mission planning that demonstrated the complexity of real-world operations. Every detail had to be perfect, every contingency considered, and every team member prepared to adapt when circumstances inevitably differed from initial expectations. Sarah found herself in leadership roles that required making decisions affecting team success while maintaining personal performance standards. As the exercise progressed, fatigue and stress accumulated to levels that threatened her ability to think clearly and perform effectively. The physical demands were manageable individually, but their combination with mental challenges and sleep deprivation created conditions where maintaining standards required determination beyond anything she had previously experienced. Her performance during the most difficult portions of the exercise surprised both Sarah and her instructors. When circumstances became most challenging, her training took over and she found herself executing procedures with precision that exceeded conscious thought. The countless hours of practice and instruction had created muscle memory and decision-making patterns that functioned effectively even when exhaustion made deliberate thinking difficult. The successful completion of field exercises marked a turning point in Sarah's development, demonstrating to herself and others that she possessed capabilities necessary for advanced military operations. Her confidence grew as she realized that the training was developing skills and mental toughness that would serve her throughout her military career, regardless of specific assignments or challenges. As the program entered its final phases, Sarah reflected on the transformation she had undergone since accepting Senior Chief Thompson's original offer. The person who had struggled with basic marksmanship qualification months earlier had been replaced by someone capable of performing complex operations under extreme conditions. The change was profound, affecting not just technical capabilities but entire approaches to problem-solving and personal challenge. The relationships formed during training had become some of the strongest of her life, forged through shared hardship and mutual dependence that created bonds unlike anything possible in normal circumstances. The candidates who remained represented a select group of individuals committed to excellence and service at the highest levels, and their friendship would continue throughout their careers. Senior Chief Thompson's guidance had been instrumental in Sarah's development, providing not just technical instruction but mentorship that helped her understand her own potential and how to access capabilities she had never known existed. His confidence in her abilities had been crucial during moments when self-doubt threatened to undermine her progress and commitment to completing the program. With graduation approaching, Sarah began to understand that successful completion of training was not an end but a beginning. The capability she had developed would be applied to missions and challenges that would make training seem easy by comparison, but she now possessed the skills and mental toughness necessary to succeed in whatever circumstances awaited. The final evaluation phase arrived with an intensity that surpassed everything Sarah had experienced during 18 months of specialized training. Unlike previous assessments that focused on specific skills or capabilities, this comprehensive examination would test her ability to integrate everything she had learned while performing under conditions that simulated real-world operations with all their complexity and unpredictability. 8 candidates remained from the original group of 24, representing those who had successfully navigated every challenge and elimination point throughout the demanding program. Each possessed capabilities that would have seemed impossible during their first days of training, but the final evaluation would determine who was truly ready for assignment to elite operational units where failure was not an option. The evaluation scenario was classified in its details, but candidates understood that it would require demonstrating proficiency in marksmanship, tactics, leadership, decision-making under pressure, and physical performance while managing fatigue and stress. More importantly, they would need to exhibit the mental toughness and character traits that separated elite military personnel from even highly capable conventional forces. Sarah prepared for the evaluation with meticulous attention to equipment, physical conditioning, and mental focus that had become second nature over months of intensive training. Every piece of gear was inspected and tested, every procedure reviewed and rehearsed, and every contingency considered to the extent possible without knowing specific requirements she would face. Senior Chief Thompson's final briefing emphasized that technical proficiency, while essential, would be less important than judgment and character under extreme conditions. The evaluation was designed to reveal how candidates would perform when everything went wrong, when standard procedures failed, and when success depended on personal qualities that could not be taught but only developed through experience and commitment. The evaluation began in pre-dawn darkness with equipment issue and mission briefing that provided minimal information about objectives while emphasizing the importance of adaptability and initiative. Sarah found herself equipped with advanced weapons systems and gear that represented the pinnacle of military technology, tools that would enable extraordinary performance in the hands of properly trained personnel. Her assigned role within the evaluation team required leadership responsibilities that pushed beyond individual performance to encompass team coordination and mission success. The dynamics were complex, involving personnel she had trained with for months but in situations where their roles and relationships were more formal and consequential than training exercises. The initial phase involved movement through challenging terrain while maintaining tactical discipline and readiness for contact with opposing forces. Sarah's physical conditioning proved adequate for the demands, but the mental challenge of constant vigilance while managing navigation and team coordination required focus and energy that accumulated fatigue in ways that pure physical exertion did not. As the evaluation progressed through multiple phases, each presenting different challenges and requirements, Sarah found herself drawing on every aspect of her training while adapting to circumstances that had not been specifically covered during instruction. The ability to think critically and solve problems creatively became as important as technical skills in determining success. The marksmanship challenges integrated precision shooting with tactical movement, time pressure, and environmental factors that made basic range qualification seem elementary by comparison. Targets appeared at varying distances and angles, required engagement from unconventional positions, and demanded split-second decisions about priority and technique that could mean the difference between mission success and failure. Sarah's performance during shooting phases exceeded her own expectations, with accuracy and speed that reflected months of intensive practice and instruction. More importantly, her decision-making remained sound even when physical fatigue and stress reached levels that degraded other aspects of her performance. The countless hours of training under adverse conditions had created capabilities that functioned automatically when conscious thought became difficult. Team coordination challenges tested leadership skills and ability to maintain unit effectiveness when individual capabilities were pushed to their limits. Sarah found herself making decisions that affected not just her own performance but team success, requiring judgment about personnel utilization and risk management that demanded maturity and experience beyond her years. The psychological pressure intensified as evaluation scenarios became more complex and demanding. Sleep deprivation, nutritional stress, and constant uncertainty about what challenge would emerge next created conditions designed to break mental discipline and reveal who possessed the character necessary for elite military service under extreme conditions. During the most difficult phase of evaluation, when her physical and mental resources were nearly exhausted, Sarah faced a scenario that required choosing between personal safety and mission accomplishment. The decision point was designed to reveal fundamental character traits that would determine suitability for operations where personnel might be required to accept extraordinary risks for mission success. Her response surprised even herself with its clarity and determination. Without hesitation, Sarah chose the course of action that maximized mission effectiveness while accepting personal risk that would have been unthinkable before her training began. The decision reflected complete internalization of values and priorities that had been emphasized throughout the program but could only be truly tested under extreme conditions. Senior Chief Thompson observed this critical moment with particular attention, understanding that it represented the ultimate validation of months of instruction and development. Sarah's choice demonstrated that she had not just learned techniques and procedures, but had adopted the mindset and character traits necessary for elite military service where ordinary standards of acceptable risk and personal sacrifice did not apply. The final hours of evaluation pushed all candidates beyond any previous experience with combinations of physical demands, mental challenges, and stress that tested the absolute limits of human capability. Several strong candidates reached points where they could no longer maintain performance standards, despite extraordinary efforts and months of preparation. Sarah's ability to continue performing effectively when others were failing reflected not just superior conditioning or technical skills, but mental toughness developed through 18 months of progressively demanding challenges. Her success was earned through countless hours of practice, study, and commitment that had transformed capabilities she never knew existed. When the evaluation concluded, Sarah experienced a mixture of exhaustion, relief, and uncertainty about results that would determine the direction of her military career. She had given everything possible to meet program standards, but the ultimate assessment belonged to instructors whose experience and judgment would decide who possessed qualities necessary for elite operational assignments. The debriefing process was thorough and honest, with detailed feedback about every aspect of her performance throughout the evaluation. Senior Chief Thompson's assessment was comprehensive, acknowledging areas where improvement remained necessary while highlighting exceptional performance in critical areas that demonstrated readiness for advanced responsibilities. His final recommendation was unequivocal: Sarah Martinez possessed the technical capabilities, mental toughness, and character traits necessary for assignment to specialized operations units where the nation's most demanding missions were conducted. Her journey from basic training struggles to elite military qualification represented transformation that few individuals ever achieved. The graduation ceremony was simple but meaningful, attended by family members who could barely comprehend the significance of what their loved ones had accomplished. Sarah's mother Isabella wept with pride and concern, understanding that her daughter had achieved something extraordinary while accepting responsibilities that would place her in danger throughout her military career. Miguel's presence provided special meaning, as he understood better than most family members what elite military service entailed and what sacrifices would be required going forward. His pride was evident, but tempered by knowledge that Sarah's journey was just beginning and that her most significant challenges lay ahead rather than behind. Senior Chief Thompson's final words to Sarah emphasized that graduation represented qualification rather than completion, the beginning of opportunities to serve at levels that few military personnel ever experienced. The capability she had developed would be tested and refined through operational assignments that would make training seem like preparation rather than accomplishment. As Sarah prepared for assignment to her first operational unit, she reflected on the transformation that had occurred since that initial day at the firing range when her marksmanship scores had barely met minimum standards. The person who had struggled with basic qualification had been replaced by someone capable of performing complex operations under extreme conditions. The journey had required sacrifices and commitment that she could not have imagined when accepting Senior Chief Thompson's original offer, but it had also revealed capabilities and strength that she never knew existed. The training had been demanding beyond description, but it had also been the most meaningful experience of her life, providing purpose and challenge that exceeded anything she had previously attempted. Looking toward the future, Sarah understood that her real test would come through operational assignments where the skills and character developed during training would be applied to missions with genuine consequences. The stakes would be higher, the challenges more complex, and the margin for error smaller than anything encountered during preparation. But she also knew that she possessed capabilities necessary for success in whatever circumstances awaited, developed through months of training that had pushed her beyond every limitation she had previously accepted about herself. The transformation was complete, but the mission was just beginning. Senior Chief Thompson's confidence in her potential had been validated through performance that exceeded expectations and demonstrated readiness for service at the highest levels of military capability. The opportunity he had offered 18 months earlier had become the foundation for a career dedicated to excellence and service that would define the rest of her life. The moment when he had handed her his rifle and stepped back had been the beginning of a journey that changed everything about who she was and what she believed possible. Now she was ready to prove that his faith had been justified, carrying forward the standards and values that had been instilled through training that transformed potential into capability and commitment into character.